Over 2,000 years ago, there was a man who united the land, yet has been cursed for 2 millennia. Some say he was a tyrant, burning books, burying scholars, building the Great Wall at the cost of countless lives, obsessing over immortality like a madman. Others call him the first emperor of all ages, standardizing writing, axle widths, weights and measures, laying the foundation of China's territory and system for more than 2,000 years. That man is Qin Shi Huang, Ying Zheng. The Ming Dynasty thinker Li Ji called him the first emperor of all ages. The modern writer Lu Xun said he was truly wronged. So here's the question. This emperor cursed for 2,000 years. Is he truly wronged? Who was he really? Today, in about 25 minutes, we'll go through his life from start to finish. You might discover that the Qin Shi Huang you thought you knew is not quite what you imagined. Our story begins in 259 BC. The Warring States period had raged for over 200 years, each state fighting for survival. The year before, Qin and Zhao had fought an earth-shattering battle, the Battle of Changping. The Qin general Bai Qi slaughtered over 400,000 surrendered Zhao soldiers. Almost every household in Zhao wore mourning clothes. Relations between the two states hit rock bottom. In this tense atmosphere, in the Zhao capital of Handan, a baby was born. That child would become Qin Shi Huang. His father was Yi Ren, a hostage prince sent by Qin to Zhao. A hostage prince, basically a hostage. In name a diplomat, in reality someone who could be executed at any moment. Yi Ren was not favored in Qin. His father, Lord Angguo, had more than 20 sons, and being dumped in enemy territory, he lived in poverty. He couldn't even afford a carriage. He had to walk everywhere. Then a man appeared, Lu Buwei. Lu Buwei was a wealthy merchant from the state of Wei. When he met Yi Ren in Handan, he immediately uttered a famous phrase, "This is a rare commodity worth hoarding." What did he mean? He saw Yi Ren's political value, a down-and-out prince who, if managed properly, could become the future ruler of Qin. For a merchant, this was a better investment than any other. So Lu Buwei started spending. He gave Yi Ren a large sum of money to entertain guests and raise his profile. Then he took even more valuable gifts to Qin, to lobby Lady Huayang, Lord Angguo's favorite concubine. How did Lu Buwei convince Lady Huayang? He used just one sentence, a sentence that would later become classic among political speculators, and it changed the course of Chinese history. Lu Buwei said, "You are favored now, but when you grow old and lose your beauty, without a son to rely on, who will remember you? Why not adopt one of Lord Angguo's sons as your own, and make him the heir?" Lady Huayang was persuaded. After she whispered in his ear, Lord Angguo agreed and carved a jade tablet as proof. Yi Ren, the down-and-out hostage prince, suddenly became the future heir to the Qin throne. To further bind the relationship, Lu Buwei did something still debated today. He gave Yi Ren his own concubine, Zhao Ji, who was already pregnant. That woman, Zhao Ji, became Ying Zheng's mother. Whether Ying Zheng was truly Lu Buwei's illegitimate son has been debated for 2,000 years. Personally, I suspect Sima Qian's account may be exaggerated. But from a political propaganda standpoint, this doubt gave the other states a weapon to attack Ying Zheng's legitimacy. Later, Yi Ren changed his name to Zichu and escaped back to Qin with Lu Buwei's help. But when he fled, he could not take Ying Zheng and Zhao Ji with him. Mother and son were left behind in Handan, becoming the targets of Zhao's fury. Imagine, a child of only a few years old, hated by everyone around him, cursed as a Qin bastard, at constant risk of being dragged out and killed. What does such a childhood, with no safety from day to day, leave in a person's heart? Fear, paranoia, distrust of humanity. We'll see these traits repeatedly in the second half of Ying Zheng's life. You might think that's already awful, but I'll tell you, that was just the beginning of his suffering. In 251 BC, King Zhaoshang of Qin died. Lord Angguo ascended the throne as King Shaowen. But this new king had a very short life. After 3 days of mourning and an official reign of just 3 days, he died. Next, Zichu Yi Ren ascended as King Zhuangxiang. 3 years later, he too died of illness. In just 4 years, Qin had 3 kings. In 247 BC, 13-year-old Ying Zheng sat on the throne of Qin. What can a 13-year-old boy do? Nothing. Real power fell into the hands of 2 people. Lu Buwei, the chancellor, called Zhongfu, meaning second father, and the Empress Dowager, Zhao Ji, his mother. One was his benefactor who put him on the throne. The other was his own mother. But these 2 turned out to be the biggest obstacles to his taking personal rule. How powerful was Lu Buwei? He not only controlled the government, but also kept 3,000 retainers and compiled a book called The Spring and Autumn of Lu Buwei. When it was finished, he hung it at the Shenyang city gate with a reward. Anyone who could change one character would receive 1,000 gold pieces. That's the origin of the phrase 1,000 gold for one word. Think about it. A minister being this ostentatious, did he have any respect for the young king? As for Zhao Ji, she was a young widow, unable to bear her solitude. To extricate himself, Lu Buwei found a man named Lao Ai, had him pretend to be a eunuch, and sent him into the palace. Lao Ai had no special talents. Well, you know. He had 2 children with Zhao Ji, was in theft as Marquis of Changshin by the Queen Dowager's power, raised thousands of retainers, and grew strong enough to rival Lu Buwei. Even worse, once Lao Ai got drunk and bragged, "I am the king's stepfather." When Ying Zheng heard this, imagine how he felt. A teenager hearing his mother's lover call himself stepfather. If it were you, could you bear it? He bore it. He didn't explode. Instead, he chose a method you'd never expect: silence. He read, studied state affairs, observed from the palace, waiting for the right moment. And that moment almost cost him his life. Meanwhile, Ying Zheng had a half-brother named Cheng Jiao. Exploiting the struggle between Lu Buwei and Lao Ai, someone persuaded Cheng Jiao to rebel. Although it was quickly put down, it made Ying Zheng realize not a single person around him was truly reliable. His mother betrayed him. His second father sidelined him. His brother wanted his throne. And his mother's lover dared to call himself stepfather. This teenager, from age 13 to 22, 9 full years, lived in such an environment. He didn't break down. He didn't lash out. He chose the most painful way for a young person: waiting. Waiting for what? For his coming-of-age ceremony, the Guanli. According to Qin law, after the Guanli at age 22, the king could officially take personal rule. That day would be his turning point. But someone was even more impatient. In 238 BC, Ying Zheng, aged 22, went to the old capital of Yang to hold his Guanli. When Lao Ai heard the news, he panicked. He knew that once the king took personal rule, none of his secrets could be hidden. So he took a desperate gamble, stole the Queen Dowager's seal, mobilized troops, and started a rebellion. If you were a 22-year-old king, away from the capital with no army at hand, what would you do? He did only one thing: wait. Wait for Lao Ai to jump out. And he had already laid a perfect trap. When Ying Zheng heard the news at Yang, he smiled coldly. Finally, you've shown yourself. He had long since arranged everything. He ordered Generals Chang Ping and Chang Wen to suppress the rebellion, and as soon as the command was given, the Shenyang troops moved. Lao Ai's ragtag forces were no match. They were quickly routed. Ying Zheng ordered, "Tear Lao Ai apart by chariots, exterminate his 3 clans." The 2 children he had with Zhao Ji were stuffed into sacks and smashed to death. Zhao Ji was expelled from Shenyang and confined in Yang. After dealing with Lao Ai, the next target was Lu Buwei. Ying Zheng didn't kill him outright. He was clever enough to know that Lu Buwei had great merit, and killing him directly would anger the court. He first dismissed Lu Buwei from the chancellorship and sent him back to his fief. 1 year later, he wrote Lu Buwei a letter. The letter contained just one sentence, a sentence that, after reading it, Lu Buwei immediately drank poisoned wine and died. The sentence was, "What merit have you rendered to Qin? Qin enfoffed you with 100,000 households." What relation are you to the king of Qin, that you dare call yourself second father? Your whole family shall be exiled to Shu. Not a single curse word, no vulgarities, but every word cut like a knife into Lu Buwei's heart. He knew there was no way out. From age 13 to 22, 9 full years, that boy who had been hunted, who played dumb in the palace, finally held power firmly in his own hands. And throughout the entire process, he did not kill a single official truly loyal to Qin. That, in itself, is more brilliant than most usurpers in history. So here's the question. What does a young man who has endured for 9 years do once he gets power? He didn't enjoy the power. Instead, he launched a plan unprecedented in human history. From 230 BC to 221 BC, Ying Zheng took just 10 years to destroy the 6 states, one by one: Han, Zhao, Wei, Chu, Yan, Qi. 10 years, 6 states. Less than 2 years per state on average. This pace is astonishing in all of Chinese history. Let's quickly review these key campaigns, because each one has a twist you wouldn't expect. First, Han. Han was the weakest, and it lay directly on Qin's path east. Ying Zheng sent Naishi Teng to take it easily. Han was the first sacrifice. Simple, right? But the next one was not so simple. Next, Zhao. Zhao's great general Li Mu was the biggest obstacle for Qin. A direct assault wouldn't work. Ying Zheng adopted a counter-espionage scheme. He sent people to Zhao to spread rumors that Li Mu was about to betray Zhao. The king of Zhao fell for it and had Li Mu executed. With Li Mu dead, Zhao had no capable general left. Wang Jian's army crushed Handan and captured the king of Zhao. By the way, Ying Zheng hadn't forgotten the humiliations he suffered as a child in Zhao. He personally went to Handan, rounded up all those who had bullied him and his mother, and buried them alive. Was that tyrannical? Absolutely. But from his perspective, it was the vengeance of 30 years of suppressed rage. Then, Yan. Crown Prince Dan of Yan sent Jing Ke to assassinate Ying Zheng. The famous scene, the dagger hidden in the map, but it failed, and Jing Ke was killed. Ying Zheng flew into a rage, immediately attacked Yan, and sent the king of Yan fleeing in disgrace. Against Wei, they used the power of water. The Qin general Wang Ben diverted the Yellow River to flood the capital Daliang. The city walls dissolved, and the king of Wei surrendered. You thought it would be a siege? No, they simply soaked the city to pieces. The hardest was Chu. Ying Zheng asked the old general Wang Jian how many troops he needed. Wang Jian said 600,000. The young general Li Xin said 200,000 would be enough. Ying Zheng sent Li Xin and suffered a crushing defeat. He had to personally invite Wang Jian back. Wang Jian took his 600,000 troops, wore down the Chu army slowly, and after a year, finally destroyed Chu. Finally, Qi had adopted a policy of appeasing Qin, thinking that by closing its borders it could stay safe. After the other 5 states were gone, Qin's army suddenly marched east, and Qi surrendered without a fight. 10 years. Ying Zheng ended more than 500 years of war that had begun in the spring and autumn period. This was not just a military victory, it was a political one. For the first time, the entire Central Plains were integrated into one state. But after unification, a new problem arose. How do you govern this unprecedented massive country? Ying Zheng's answer would influence China for 2,000 years. The first thing Ying Zheng did was give himself a new title. The old title of king no longer suited him. He ordered his ministers to propose a new one. Some suggested Tai Huang, others said Tian Huang. In the end, Ying Zheng decided, take one character from San Huang, 3 sovereigns, and one from Wu Di, 5 emperors. Combine them into Huang Di, emperor. He was the first emperor, so he called himself Shi Huang Di, the first emperor. His descendants would be second, third, and so on, for generations without end. With this new title, the entire state system began to change. Ying Zheng did several things that shaped China for 2 millennia. First, and most crucially, he abolished enfeoffment and implemented commanderies and counties. You might ask, what's the difference? Let me tell you a story, and you'll understand. Previously, the Zhou dynasty practiced enfeoffment, giving relatives land to rule as vassal lords. The first and second generations still recognized central authority, but after a few generations, they didn't. They fought each other constantly. The spring and autumn and warring states periods were the result. Ying Zheng divided the realm into 36 commanderies, later more than 40. Commandery governors and county magistrates were appointed and dismissed directly by the central government, without hereditary succession. From then on, China was no longer a confederation, but a truly centralized state. Second, the 3 lords and 9 ministers system. At the center, chancellor, imperial secretary, and grand commandant, handling administration, supervision, and military affairs. This institutional framework lasted from Qin and Han all the way to Ming and Qing. Third, and perhaps most impressive, standardizing writing, axle widths, weights, and measures. During the Warring States period, each state had its own script, its own card axle width, its own measurements. Even the languages were mutually unintelligible. If you walked from Zhao to Qi, nobody could read your writing. Your carriage couldn't fit on the roads, and every scale was different. Ying Zheng ordered small seal script as the standard script. He fixed the cart axle width at 6 feet and built all roads to that standard. He unified the Dao, bucket, weight, scale, zhang, and qi. Imagine it like today. If the whole world suddenly unified language, currency, and traffic rules, how much would that boost economic and cultural exchange? Immensely beyond your imagination. Fourth, building imperial highways and straight roads. Ying Zheng was an ancient infrastructure maniac. He built a nationwide transport network centered on Shenyang. The most famous was the Straight Road, running from Shenyang directly to Juyuan in the north, over 700 kilometers long, wide enough in places for a dozen carriages to run side by side. These roads were not just military lifelines. They also enabled the flow of goods on an unprecedented scale. Without the Straight Road, the Han Dynasty might have taken decades longer to defeat the Xiongnu. After hearing all this, you might think Qin Shi Huang was a great reformer. But you're about to see his other side, the side that earned him 2,000 years of condemnation. When many people think of Qin Shi Huang, the first things that come to mind are, built the Great Wall, worked the common people to death, the legend of Meng Jiangnu crying over the wall. But the truth might be somewhat different from what you imagine. First, the Great Wall was not invented by Qin Shi Huang. During the Warring States period, Qin, Zhao, and Yan had each built their own walls. What Ying Zheng did was connect these old walls and add new sections, forming a 10,000-li defense line stretching from Lintao in the west to Liaodong in the east. The purpose? To defend against the Xiongnu in the north. The Xiongnu were nomadic. Their cavalry moved like the wind, and people living on the border suffered terribly. Once the wall was built, the Xiongnu cavalry couldn't just ride in freely. They would have to conduct organized sieges, while Qin troops could move quickly along the wall, using static defense to counter mobile attacks. From a military standpoint, the Great Wall was extremely cost-effective. It replaced a huge standing cavalry force with fixed fortifications, saving enormous military expenditure. Of course, I'm not whitewashing Qin Shi Huang. The price of building the wall was indeed horrific. Hundreds of thousands of conscripted laborers were mobilized, and many died on the construction site. On top of that, Qin Shi Huang was also building his own mausoleum at Mount Li and the Apang Palace. All these mega projects underway simultaneously pushed the nation's labor resources to the breaking point. The later uprising of Chen Sheng and Wu Guang had as its direct trigger the rule, delay, be executed, because they were delayed by rain, and according to law, they were to be put to death. While modern bamboo slip research suggests that Qin law actually had flexible provisions, local officials often enforced it more harshly. Thus, the contradiction exploded. Building the Great Wall. From the standpoint of national security, it was right. From the standpoint of the people's livelihood, it was wrong. Both are facts. You have to judge for yourself. But if you think building the Great Wall was his worst accusation, you'd be wrong. There's an even more damning charge waiting. The phrase burning books and burying scholars has almost become the label for Qin Shi Huang. But what is the real truth? Let's peel it apart, layer by layer. First, the burning of books. In 213 BC, at a banquet, a Confucian scholar named Buwei proposed restoring the enfeoffment system, saying, "I have never heard of a state that does not learn from antiquity yet can last long." In other words, without studying ancient systems, how can a state be durable? Ying Zheng was angered. Are you trying to reverse the wheel of history? Then Li Si seized the opportunity to propose, except for Qin's own historical records, books on medicine, divination, agriculture, and other practical subjects. All non-official copies of the Book of Documents, Book of Songs, and the 100 Schools writings held by private individuals must be burned. Anyone who dared to discuss these books in private would be executed. That was the burning of books. Please note, it was private collections that were burned. The official archives and the copies held by court academicians were not destroyed. Later, when the Qin dynasty fell, Xiang Yu burned the Xianyang Palace, and those official collections were truly lost in the fire. So, the fact that we can't read many pre-Qin classics today is actually more Xiang Yu's credit than Qin Shi Huang's. Now, the burying of scholars. This occurred the following year. Ying Zheng was obsessed with immortality and kept many alchemists who searched for magical elixirs. After spending a large amount of money and finding nothing, the alchemists began to slander the emperor, saying he was too stubborn, that the elixir couldn't be found because of his lack of virtue. Then a group of them ran away. Ying Zheng was furious. He ordered a hunt and finally arrested more than 460 offenders, mostly alchemists and specialists in esoteric arts, possibly including some Confucians, and buried them alive in Xianyang. This event was essentially a political suppression of fraudulent behavior, not a targeted ideological massacre of Confucians. But because Confucians dominated later historical writing, the blame naturally fell on Qin Shi Huang's head. As for the search for immortality, it shows that even a great ruler cannot escape the fear of death. He sent Xu Fu with thousands of young boys and girls across the sea to find Mount Penglai, the legendary Isle of Immortals. Xu Fu never returned. It is said he went to Japan. Ying Zheng also made numerous tours and left many stone inscriptions. On his last tour, he fell ill at Shaqiyu in Hebei. That illness would send the newly unified Qin Empire racing toward a rapid collapse. In 210 BC, Qin Shi Huang died of illness on his fifth eastern tour at Shaqiyu, near modern Guangzhou, Hebei. Before his death, he wrote a letter to his eldest son, Fusu, ordering him to return to Xianyang to preside over the funeral. This was clearly an intention for Fusu to succeed. But the letter fell into the hands of a man, Zhao Gao. Zhao Gao was a eunuch and also the teacher of Hu Hai. He allied with the chancellor, Li Si, tampered with the will, made Hu Hai emperor, and, in the name of the first emperor, ordered Fusu to commit suicide. When Fusu received the forged decree, he actually did kill himself, an heir to the empire, killed by a piece of paper. After Hu Hai ascended the throne, he was 10 times crueler than his father. He slaughtered all his siblings, left all state affairs to Zhao Gao, and simply enjoyed himself. Zhao Gao called a deer a horse, eliminating anyone who disagreed. Meanwhile, Chen Sheng and Wu Guang had already raised their banner at Day's Township, and nobles from the former 6 states rose in response. At that time, Qin's regular armies were far away, 500,000 troops in the south subjugating the Buwei, and 300,000 troops in the north guarding the Great Wall under Meng Tian. But Hu Hai and Zhao Gao were busy with internal power struggles. By the time the rebel forces reached the vicinity of Xianyang, the central army was powerless. In 207 BC, Zhao Gao forced Hu Hai to kill himself and made Ziying the king of Qin. 46 days later, Lu Bang entered Xianyang, and Ziying surrendered. Xiang Yu then entered the pass, killed Ziying, and burned the Qin palaces. The Great Qin Empire, which had once swept away the 6 states, lasted only 15 years. Why did the mighty Qin fall so fast? The direct cause was the Shaqiyu coup, which brought Hu Hai to power, and Hu Hai's tyranny sparked nationwide rebellion. But the deeper cause? Qin Shi Huang's later policies had drained the people's strength, building the Great Wall, the Mausoleum, the roads, conquering the Buwei, attacking the Xiongnu. All these mega projects happened simultaneously, pushing the people's endurance to the limit. The uprising of Chen Sheng and Wu Guang was not essentially because Qin law was too harsh, but because local officials, in enforcement, piled on extra layers of severity, driving the common people to desperation. A superpower that crushed the 6 states, gone in 15 years. How would you judge its founder? If you stand from the perspective of those laborers who died building the Great Wall, he was a tyrant. If you stand from the perspective of China's 2,000-year history of unity, he is the first emperor of all ages. Historical evaluation is never black and white. It is a complex, multifaceted prism. There is a fascinating contradiction in him. He unified writing, currency, weights, and measures. He laid the kernel of Chinese culture. Yet he also tried to control thought with harsh laws and high-handed pressure, and ultimately, it backfired. Many people say Qin Shi Huang was wronged, that his atrocities were magnified over and over by later scholars, while his achievements were deliberately ignored. But we cannot deny that the harsh punishments and overuse of forced labor in the Qin dynasty are historical facts. One more story. After unifying the 6 states, Qin Shi Huang melted down all the weapons in the realm and cast them into 12 giant bronze statues, which he placed in front of the Xianyang Palace. He wanted the world never to see war again. Alas, war didn't disappear. It returned in full force after just 15 years. And that man, cursed for 2 millennia, still lies at the foot of Mount Li, watching the empire he built, which crumbled so soon after his death. Do you think he was a tyrant, or the first emperor of all ages, or both?